Chapter 1. The game you never chose, but got trapped in. Most men today are unknowingly trapped in a game they never actively signed up for. A game built on a subtle lie. The belief that success is reserved only for those who grind longer, hustle harder, and suffer more than everyone else. From an early age, you were conditioned to believe that the only path to meaningful results was through exhaustion, sacrifice, and relentless effort. And because you were never offered an alternative, you bought into that story. So, you work more hours, shoulder more responsibilities, say yes to more demands, try to please everyone. And yet, when you stop to look around, there's barely anything to show for it. Here's the hard truth. The world doesn't reward effort. It rewards results. And those results? They don't come from doing everything. They come from doing the right things. But that's where the trap deepens. No one ever tells you what those right things are. Not your boss, not your teachers, not your friends, and not even your family. So you keep doing more, hoping more effort will finally move the needle. You stay busy, tick every box, say yes when you want to say no, and slowly burn yourself out in silence. That's why I say, the game is rigged. Because the men who win, the ones who rise, don't play like the rest. They don't chase crumbs. They don't exhaust themselves trying to impress people who don't even matter. They understand the game within the game. They can tell the difference between what's noise and what's signal. They realize that most of what we do, most of what we stress about, most of what fills our days, is actually meaningless. And this is where the 80-20 rule comes in. But it's not just a productivity tip. It's a complete shift in thinking. A lens that cuts through the lies and reveals what truly matters. It's the mindset that allows you to take back control of your time, your energy, your money, and your future. So if you've been wondering why your hard work hasn't produced the life you want, this is why. You're playing a game that rewards precision, not pressure, strategy, not sweat. And in the next few minutes, I'll show you how to flip that game in your favor. Chapter 2. The principle the weak forget. Most people have heard of the 80-20 rule. Maybe they've read it in a book, seen it in a productivity course, or heard a podcast mention it in passing. But very few, almost none, actually live by it. Why? Because it sounds too simple to be true. It doesn't feel extreme enough. It doesn't sound like the kind of breakthrough that could radically change your life. But that simplicity, that's the very thing that makes it powerful. Let me be blunt. The men who dismiss simple truths are the ones who stay stuck in complicated problems for the rest of their lives. They crave complexity because it makes them feel smart, but it keeps them stuck. Here's the real truth behind the 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle. 80% of your results come from just 20% of your efforts. That means a tiny fraction of what you do produces the overwhelming majority of your outcomes. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. This principle is everywhere. 80% of your income likely comes from 20% of your work. 80% of your stress is probably caused by 20% of the people in your life. 80% of your physical results come from just 20% of your habits. 80% of your peace comes from 20% of your daily choices. It's not a trend. It's not a trick. It's a pattern of life. And it's trying to teach you something. But here's the twist that most men never catch. The weak ignore it. They ignore the signal. They stay busy. They say yes to everything. They fill their schedule with low-value tasks and wonder why their life never moves forward. They spread themselves thin, mistaking motion for progress. They burn their energy on the irrelevant and end up exhausted, unfulfilled, and confused. The strong, the focused, the quiet giants of the world, they obsess over the 20%. They seek it out. They track it down. They ask themselves every day, what's the one thing that really moves the needle? And once they find it, they double down. They stop chasing 100 different improvements and put their time into the few moves that matter most. They simplify everything, not because they're lazy, but because they understand leverage. And in that simplicity, they grow richer, stronger, more peaceful, while everyone else is drowning in noise. So let me ask you something directly. Do you know what your 20% is? If you don't, then nothing else you do will matter until you find it. Because your time is limited. Your energy is finite. And unless you learn to direct them toward what matters most, they will be wasted. Every day, quietly, irretrievably. Chapter 3. Applying 80-20 in real life. Now that we've laid the foundation, it's time to get practical. The 80-20 rule isn't just an idea to admire. It's a weapon you must wield. Knowing about it changes nothing. Living by it changes everything. Let's start with your career or business. Ask yourself, what 20% of your clients, tasks, or skills generate 80% of your income? If you're self-employed, which services or products consistently deliver the biggest profits? If you work for someone else, which responsibilities actually matter to your boss or clients? Not the ones that fill your day, but the ones that get noticed? Once you've identified those few key levers, double down. Then look at the rest, the endless meetings, the micromanaging, the admin work, the just checking in emails, and eliminate or delegate them. These are the silent thieves of your power. Next, your relationships. Who are the 20% of people who uplift you, sharpen you, encourage your clarity, peace, and drive? Spend more time with them. Nourish those connections. Now ask, who are the 20% causing 80% of your anxiety, drama, guilt, or confusion? Create space. Set boundaries. Or, if needed, cut ties. Your peace matters more than pleasing the wrong people. Let's talk about your health and fitness. You don't need a 90-minute gym routine or 12 supplements to get fit. Maybe it's 20 minutes of focused strength training, walking every day, and cutting processed sugar. Find the high-leverage habits, the ones that give you disproportionate results. What about your mind and mental clarity? What 20% of your thoughts, routines, or inputs give you the most focus, confidence, and energy? Reread those books. Revisit those affirmations. Strengthen those beliefs. And ditch the 80%. The social media scrolls, toxic comparison, self-doubt spirals, overthinking patterns. They are noise. You don't need them. This is how you become dangerous, not by doing more, but by doing less of what doesn't matter and more of what actually works. And if anyone tells you this is laziness, remember, this isn't laziness. This is leverage. Chapter 4, Cutting the Noise. The power of eliminating the 80%. Let me tell you something most men are too afraid to admit. You don't need more. You need less. Less distraction. Less obligation. Less noise disguised as urgency. Less of the invisible weight that's been dragging you down for years. The 80% that's consuming your life? It's not just a time waster. It's a silent assassin. It doesn't just fill your calendar. It empties your mind. It doesn't just drain your energy. It clouds your focus. And the scariest part? Most men become addicted to it. They become so used to the chaos that silence feels uncomfortable. They confuse motion with achievement, like a hamster on a wheel. They chase notifications like dogs chase cars. They say yes to everything. Every invitation, every favor, every demand, and then wonder why they never have time to breathe, think, or build something meaningful. This has to stop. Now. Because once you've identified your 20%, you have to go to war with the rest. That means quitting projects that no longer serve your mission. It means walking away from relationships that dim your fire. It means saying no, not once, but over and over again, even when it makes others uncomfortable or disappointed. It's not easy. The world will call you selfish. But here's the truth they won't tell you. You can't be generous with your gifts if your life is a mess. You can't give your best to others when you're constantly distracted, drained, and depleted. Clarity needs space. Focus needs silence. And if your mind is constantly bombarded by things that don't matter, you'll never hear the quiet voice inside you, the one that knows exactly why you're here. So start cutting. Trim the excess. Eliminate the unnecessary. Get brutally honest about what's no longer aligned with your mission. Because eliminating is not weakness, it's strength. It's the discipline of the elite, the quiet confidence of those who win without shouting. Chapter 5, The Turning Point. When you see your first results. This is where everything begins to shift. You've identified your 20%. You've started saying no. You've trimmed the noise. And then, without warning, it hits you. One morning, you wake up and realize something strange. You're not exhausted anymore. Your head is clearer. Your actions are lighter. Your decisions feel easier. You're not chasing. You're choosing. That's the turning point. The moment you realize that doing less is finally producing more. At first, it feels strange. You almost feel guilty. Because for the first time in a long time, you're not overwhelmed. You're not stretched thin. You're not fighting to survive. Instead, you're moving with purpose. Your schedule has space. Your energy is laser-focused. While others are burning out trying to juggle 100 things, you're quietly rising. With fewer moves, fewer mistakes, and fewer regrets. And here's the most powerful shift. You start trusting yourself again. You stop second-guessing every decision. You stop apologizing for your boundaries. You stop needing permission to live a life on your terms. Instead, you start seeing the proof, the results, the clarity, the progress. And suddenly, it clicks. Success doesn't come from doing everything. It comes from doing the right things, consistently, clearly, and confidently. Once you taste that level of alignment, there's no going back. You'll never again settle for a life that's full of motion but empty of meaning. You'll crave more, not more tasks, but more freedom, more impact, more peace. Chapter 6. The Climax. Multiplying Profits, Peace, and Freedom. This is it. The final stage, where everything you've simplified now begins to multiply. You've eliminated the noise. You've focused on the few things that matter. You've taken back control of your time, your attention, your energy. And now, you're not just growing, you're compounding. Not just income, but peace. Not just productivity, but purpose. Not just motion, but meaning. You become what most men only pretend to be: calm, confident, free. While others are drowning in busy work, you're building in silence. While they brag about their grind, you quietly stack real power. That's what happens when you live by the 80-20 rule. You stop needing to chase 10 things. You only pursue one, the right one. You stop trying to impress the crowd. You stay loyal to the mission. You stop measuring success by how tired you are. You start measuring it by how clear and in control you feel. You multiply your income by focusing only on your most valuable skills, clients, or products. You multiply your peace by cutting out the noise, the guilt, the people who pull you down. You multiply your freedom by protecting your schedule, your time, your attention. And the most beautiful part? You're not working harder than everyone else. You're just working smarter, sharper, and quieter. That's when you finally understand. Real power is quiet. Real wealth is focused. Real success is selective. And when you live like this long enough, something strange happens. People begin to notice. They ask how you did it. They want your peace, your results, your clarity. But they're not willing to do what you did. They don't want to say no. They don't want to simplify. They don't want to focus. They want the reward without the cost. But you paid the price. You sacrificed noise for clarity. You traded motion for meaning. You committed to what truly mattered. And now, you live a life most men will never touch, built on precision, peace, and power. Because the truth is, more is not better. Better is better. And better starts with less. So here's your challenge. Not for next week, not for next month, for today. Take 15 minutes. Look at your life. Ask yourself, what are the 20% of people, habits, or actions that give me 80% of my power, peace, and progress? Double down. What are the 80% that bring confusion, stress, and chaos? Start cutting. Once you start living this way, you won't just become more productive. You'll become unstoppable. If this message resonates, hit subscribe, drop a like, and comment. I choose the 20%. Because this is how you multiply your results and build a life most men only dream of, quietly, intentionally, powerfully. You're not here to do everything. You're here to do what matters. And now, you finally know where to start.